warm in here. Carry outside. Just get my vibrates.
Hi,
Good
Jim.
morning, Commissioners. How are you?
Good.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Where's Janet?
She ran to her office and she said she.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, there she is.
Janet, are you gonna come up?
You want to come up?
You want to come on? Are you talking about anything else?
Oh, come on up.
Yeah,
Sit
just
Pretty
John's
good.
description.
with me. Again, good morning, Commissioners. As I chatted with you in, I think, one of our last open meetings here in your chambers, one of my projects I wanted to work on was reviewing the job descriptions for the staff, the office staff within the building department, as I felt it was kind of woefully lacking in detail. And I did it for two reasons. One was I wanted some clarity because over time, as we all know, things change. And so I won't belabor that point. But the other thought of it is I know when I came back, the process that Janet put together and the procedures and the detail got me to thinking that's a great thing to do. And I believe in that. I've always done that in my career. So I built these new job descriptions with that theory that in the event we have an open slot, these are very clear, not down to the ornate detail, but the components of the position are now well defined. So in your hands, what we now did is prior to this, and assuming we get this approved, we really only had two positions in the office staff, and that was clerk 1, clerk 2. Very generic in statement and somewhat generic in content to the bullet points. So in front of you, you see the highlights on each one of these, and I'd be happy to go over each one with you. But we've created now 3 levels, and we've retitled this permit technician, and the reason I did that was the International Code Council has an actual certified component that has been created and may be shortly adopted here in Ohio for the title of permit technician, which is more incumbent to what the work is rather than just clerk. Not that a clerk in any office is weak or has a lesser capacity of need, but just to be more accurate to what we do. And so what we've done in each of these is the lowest level being permit technician 1, followed by 2, and then 3. And the major differences are some responsibilities, some supervisory type roles. And if we look at, for example, if we look at permit technician 2, if I can jump down there, we have on the last page, or second last page, I've added something that I think would be beneficial for the county. You may want to consider it downturn, but for me it was important to have a level of authority. What is the responsibility that that person has of an authoritarian nature to do their job without running to somebody? Whether it's verbal authority, signature authority, and so forth. So in the permit technician 1, we don't include that because that person is there to do a job. However, as we jump to the permit technician 2 and we look at the level of authority for that person, we see that they can reject or accept documents. So as formal documents arrive, if they're not complete, they can do that, including registrations, bonds, legal documents. That person can reject inspection requests either based on inspector's availability or the level of plan approval, because they're researching documents that have been done by myself or the plans examiners to see where we're at. They can accept or reject any fees. They have the financial authority to balance daily pay-ins to the treasurers. They have the authority to release electrical service to First Energy, saying it's safe to move on. And they have the authority to issue certificates of occupancy for residential buildings under my guidance. So there's some changes in that category that add some strong levels, but are very accurate to what that person will do. And then as we move on to the level 3, which is prior to this, was a clerk 2. This person has similar responsibilities, but also that person adds a few items. They have an absence of the office manager. they can take over for the office and do those duties, whether it's vacation, sickness, or whatever, so the office functions that the office manager carries out continue. Balancing the pay-ins, getting everything to the treasurer's office, et cetera. And that person also acts as your Board of Appeals secretary for our Board of Building and Appeals and Floodplain.
Yeah.
So there's some added roles in that level. Let's see, what was I doing? The other part throughout all of these that is different is as we get into the area of functions. And what we've done here is we've added something under requirements. We've added knowledge of the building codes and standards. What's important for the staff in the office is to be able to understand the primary chapters in both our residential and our Ohio Building Codes, which is non-residential commercial. And that is chapters 1 and 2. 1 is administration, and 2 is definitions. I don't expect them, and I wouldn't expect that person to go much beyond that, but it's critical because as they're interacting on the phone, at the counter, taking in documents, they have to do an evaluation, which they have been doing. So, if we get a set of drawings in, they're evaluating what is arriving at our counter. Applications, zoning, sanitation, and what's in the documents. So they can help somebody, so if someone walks in and they look at the drawings and say, well, do you have your site plan? Or I can look at your site plan and understand you're missing some items, so that that person doesn't drop things off and leave and 2 days later get a note saying, well, 2 days have now lapsed. They can help them right at the counter, and those are critical, and that's throughout all of these new job descriptions. And the last component of these, which is empirical to all of them, is that they have, and this is in job standards, they're all notaries. And I think I've shared with you in the past that happened, each one of these staff members, probably about 2009 or 10, were required at that time to go get a notary seal. They did so under their own cost, and which we're going to do later, will promise some things that never occurred. And so, but I've now added that because, again, that's a critical part to this job description, that person has to have that capabilities, because we have documents that we are required to have signed and notarized in our office that assist that person right at the counter. They don't have to walk up to the bank or find somebody.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, having that service inside the building as another entity, we just simply do it. It's a no charge, we just do it. So we can help other members of the county for anything they may need. So my purpose in this is if you have any questions, this meeting is to present these to you. See if you have any questions. Tell you that I encourage you to consider adopting these as new job descriptions. And when we're at this point of discussion, then to go into further depth that Janet's done, refactoring and items, that I would request that under 122, 122G, that we would go into executive session to discuss those factoring and potential changes in fees.
Okay. Randy, right now, do you have 3 people that
Or in each capacity.
We were
puts it in.
talking about clerk 2. I wasn't sure, is one person that doesn't have a title, or how does that?
We paralleled clerk 1 into 2 people.
Okay.
We had when we had 2 people in the office plus an office manager. One clerk was clerk 1. The clerk 2 was the lady that does your secretarial work for the Board of Appeals. And when we brought in a new person, which we have part-time, which is beneficial, that person also obtained clerk 1.
Okay.
Well, the reality is, that's the lowest level, the base level, which is fine, but the other person who has much greater time and experience and does much more didn't really belong in either category.
I see.
So I created 2 to be more poignant to those different levels.
Okay, I'm sure that's a welcome change to them.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
If this gets approved, I think it will be. I think it will be, because it's very clear now what their responsibilities are. We're up to this point, and I'll take, part of that responsibility was more verbal than well documented. And like I said, as we put these together, I thought, okay, future. succession plan.
Yeah.
What can we do? So if we do get someone, and Janet, and I ask her to go out and find somebody to fill an open position for whatever, I always like to
She
say.
knows more what she's looking for.
Well, she knows what she's, and so too do the people.
Right.
So, and we can work with that. For example, if someone arrives that is not a notary, well, then they know that in a certain time, they have to be a
Have to
notary.
be in there.
And that's all beneficial to the county.
Janet, can I ask you on the, adding the levels of authority to the job description? I know that some of these things are done based on statutory requirement and legal requirements. Do you see any concern with adding that section for the building
No,
department?
actually, no, not at all. And to be quite honest, that helped us with the factoring.
Good,
When we were
okay.
looking at it, so it helped us. And I even mentioned to Randy that one of the projects that Jen and I want to work on this year is looking at all of our job descriptions again. And this is an area that we could possibly add to other
The
departments.
standard template?
Yeah,
Okay,
so it
good.
actually helped.
Good.
I got lucky. Using my own
Starting to read
need,
the
my own
routes.
need. Well, we're, sometimes, as I said, we're, with some of the changes, which are welcome and good that are happening, such as deputy director position, good succession planning, and maybe we're a little bit of that guinea pig and a catalyst, and it's fun to kind of go through these and think about them in a little bit of a more open mind. I hate to use the word out of the box because that's so old cliche, but
Right.
you know, just look beyond the norm.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to go into executive session for G1 to consider the compensation of a public employee.
Second?
Roll call, Amy?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.